Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC, coming at you. National Championship preview, Florida, Houston, in San Antonio to conclude the Final Four, to conclude this season of basketball, and the Gators all the way in it until the end, hopefully holding that trophy at the end of this one. To help me preview it, it's going to be a unique episode. We get Neil Blackmon from Florida Basketball Hour. He will kind of introduce us this episode here. And then we'll have a Gators Breakdown Plus chat behind that. So, of course, Florida defeats Auburn. Big game to start the Final Four. Houston defeats Duke in an incredible comeback, setting the stage for this one. And then, hey, I wanted to get Neil's thoughts, and I wanted to get Gator Nation's thoughts through Gators Breakdown Plus, and that's what we're going to have this episode. So everybody hit that like button. I mean, hopefully you're enjoying this day of not a lot of time to turn around an episode, of course, and a game on Saturday, and then a game on Monday. Putting in right here some more basketball coverage of here, covering this special team now competing for a national championship. So everybody hit that like button. It really helps us out right here on the YouTube. Subscribe to Gators Breakdown right here on your favorite podcast platform or YouTube. And so glad you guys are liking the coverage. Glad you liked the Patrick Young interview, Neil as well, last week to preview the Final Four and let us kind of know just how special this team is. We're seeing it right in front of our eyes, competing for a title. So without further ado, here's Neil Blackmon, then followed by Gators Breakdown Plus chat.
Hey guys, it's Neil Blackmon from Saturday Down South and Florida Basketball Hour. Just ready to talk a little national championship Final Four with my guy Dave and all of y'all at Gators Breakdown. So obviously Florida wins 79-73 over Auburn in the Final Four in a battle of SEC champions that I thought was one of the better Final Four games in the last 10 years. Just in terms of the quality of basketball, the sheer star power on the floor, not just with the two consensus first-team All-Americans, but also arguably the two best six men in college basketball in Todd Pettiford and Thomas Houck. Some elite offensive players like Chad Baker-Mazara, some elite defensive players like Elijah Martin and Denver Jones. It had a little bit of everything. Florida fell behind because they didn't guard. They gave up 1.43 points per possession in the first half. That was their second worst points per possession half of the season, behind the second half of the Kentucky game at Rupp Arena, and the same number that they gave up in the second half of the North Carolina game in Charlotte. Remember, they had the huge lead. They crumbled. Lost the huge lead, and then came back to win anyway, as this team has proven it is wont to do. But the Gators, 0.72 points per possession for Auburn, or 0.73 points per possession for Auburn in the second half. Just a tremendous performance, one of Auburn's lowest outputs in a half of the season, second lowest PPP for Auburn in a half all year. And so I think it begs the question, like, what adjustments did Florida make? Why did Janai Broome have 15 points and 7 rebounds, for example, in the first half, and then kind of finish the game without scoring in the last 15 minutes? And the answer to the adjustments question is that Florida guarded two actions better, right? Like they guarded Auburn has these flex actions where there's a flex cut into the middle of the floor. There's usually a screen after the flex cut or before the flex cut. If they want to get the cutter open, they screen before. If the flex cutter wants to make an entry pass easy, they screen after. Florida guarded that action better. The other thing Florida did better was they put ball pressure and extended their defense and their guards to make it a little bit harder for Auburn to make those entry passes. And so that moved Janai Broome, instead of catching at 8 or 9 feet, he started catching at 16 or 17 feet. And look, I know he's hit some movie theater type threes like he did in the Elite Eight, but the reality was Florida was just really much more capable in terms of guarding him if he was away from the hoop. And that makes sense, right? It shouldn't surprise anybody that, the game kind of went down the way it did. Obviously, Broome does not score in the last 15 minutes of the game. He finishes 6 of 12 from the floor. He finishes with just 7 rebounds. He did not have a rebound in the second half, which I think is maybe one of the most staggering things about that basketball game. And Auburn had good performances from some other people, including Baker Mazzara, who I thought played great with 4 of 7 from 3, 18 points. Played hurt, had 4 steals. He's not a particularly good defender, I don't think, but he was very active in this game. And then they got a couple flushes from Dylan Cardwell. I mean, he was 4 or 5 from the floor, had 3 dunks. But Florida did not let Tahad Pettiford, who has been the lightning bug for this team really over the final month of the season, including when they clinched the SEC. They did not let him get loose. And full credit to Elijah Martin primarily for that. Pettiford finished 1 of 6. He did make 5 free throws. Obviously, Martin had the one loud bad foul. But Pettiford had 4 assists. Martin made him pass. He also had 3 turnovers, one of which led to the dunk of the season when Chinyelu swatted the ball away. Martin actually gets credit for that steal, and it's a steal and coast-to-coast dunk. Florida deflected 16, I think, passes in the second half. So they were just much more active in the passing lanes. I thought Will Richard was tremendous in that regard. He had 2 deflections. He had 3 steals. All of that came in the second half. There was one possession in particular where Richard just outfought Broome for the ball, and it looked like 3 different times Auburn was going to recover the ball, and ultimately Richard took it on the baseline. So really it was just Florida guarded the primary action that Auburn ran better. And so they doubled down on the idea that they could do that, because I know everybody was like, you got to double Broome, you got to double Broome. Florida declined. They declined the invitation to double Broome. It worked anyway. So that got them a date in the national title game for 38 minutes and 34 seconds. It looked like it would be Duke, which was the much anticipated, much prognosticated Final Four matchup before the NCAA tournament began. But Houston, they had done this before, folks, but they rally and flat out steal it from Duke, erasing a 7-point deficit in the final 86 seconds to win. And so Houston is now headed to the national title game. They are, by the way, predicted to win in all the advanced metrics. Ken Pom has it 72-71. Houston, I'm going to Torvik here just so that you guys are kind of on top of where Torvik sees this game. Torvik actually sees it a little more lopsided than 72-71. They've got it 71-67, a comfortable 4-point Houston win. Haslametrics has a 1-point Houston win. So Houston is favored in all the computer models and analytics. They are not favored in Vegas, which I think is fascinating. The matchup I'm most looking forward to in this game is just a showdown of backcourts. LJ Cryer, Milos Uzan, Emmanuel Sharp, all 3 of those guys shoot over 40% from 3 points. LJ Cryer has been on an absolute heater in the NCAA tournament. I think he's been the best player in the NCAA tournament that isn't Walter Clayton Jr., with the exception of one game. He's had just an absolutely magnificent NCAA tournament. Had 26 in the win over Duke, made 6 3-pointers. He was fantastic. Just cooked Tennessee with 17 points and 7 rebounds, 4 assists, no turnovers against the Vols. He was bothered by Purdue a little bit, but he cooked Gonzaga, 30 points in that game, 6 of 11. The guy has made 10, 11. He's made 19 3-pointers in the NCAA tournament, and he's only taken, just to give you an idea, 42. So he's shooting almost 50% from 3 in the NCAA tournament. Just staggeringly good stuff. He is supported very much by Milos Uzan, who is one of their highest rated recruits. Cryer and Uzan were both 4-star prospects. Florida of course, has one of those on their entire roster, and it's Say Brown, who doesn't really play this year. And, that gives you an idea of, like, there's a pretty talented team that Florida's playing. Houston has to get those shots. They've got to get the made shots from those shooters, from Uzan, Robertson, Sharp in particular. It was Uzan who carried them in the Purdue game. He had 22 points. He was 6 of 9 from 3. Just gives you an idea that on any given night, if you cut the water off of one of them, they are still kind of interestingly, what's the word? Just somebody else gets loose, right? And Purdue is an interesting one because I don't think Purdue is particularly big. They certainly don't have the athletes that Florida has. That's the team that Houston beat on a buzzer beater in the Sweet 16. Gonzaga also pushed them. Gonzaga a little more Florida-ish, but Purdue pushed Houston, and the way that they did it primarily was that even though Houston was committed to not letting Braden Smith, Purdue's All-American point guard, get shots off, Smith just killed them. Purdue had 20 assists. 15 of those were by Braden Smith. He was marvelous. Trey Kaufman-Renn, their all Big Ten player, was very good. And then Fletcher Lawyer hit a couple threes. Camden Hyde hit a couple threes. And even though Purdue shot only 30% from 3, they had a chance to win at the end. And then Houston gets the backdoor cut layup, and they win the game. Houston obviously had, like I said, the tight one with Gonzaga, but I think it's just the guard matchup. It's Uzan, Cryer, and Sharp, and those 3 electric shooters versus Richard, Martin, Aberdeen, and Walter Clayton. And then the other big question I think for Florida is if you can limit Houston to their season average from 3, which doesn't sound like the greatest thing in the world, but let's say Houston shoots 40% from 3, which is best in America, right? Let's say they do that. All right. What you then have to do is rebound. You have to rebound. And when they do miss, you cannot let them get the second chance opportunities. Houston ranks 10th in the country in offensive rebounding, just behind Florida. They rank 122nd in defensive rebounding. So you can get some misses back against them. It's a little Florida-ish in that way. Florida's 133rd in defensive rebounding, but 5th in offensive rebounding. So the team that wins the rebounding battle and gets extra shots is the team that's going to win this game. And I think for Florida, the path is, look, Houston's going to dictate tempo. And I know that's hard for a lot of you to hear, but they're just so good at that. It's hard for me to see Florida commanding the game and getting up and down. Alabama did it a little bit. They played a 76 possession game against Alabama, but that included overtime. So I think you're probably looking at, a lower possession game, maybe 64, 65 possessions would be optimal for Florida. They will play slower than that, probably. They had 61 possessions against Duke, 59 in dismantling Tennessee, 57 against Purdue, who was also more than happy to play slow. Tennessee is the team that is most like Houston. I've seen a lot of people online comparing them to Texas Tech, and those teams are just not that similar, folks. First of all, Texas Tech has they have more size because Houston's guards are small, and Texas Tech's guards are not particularly small, with the exception of their point guard Elijah Hawkins. Secondly, JT Toppin is nothing like Houston's best quote-unquote big, Jawan Roberts, who's been playing hurt a little bit down the stretch. He was very good against Duke on the glass, though it hasn't been the scorer he was in January and February since his injury. But Houston and Tennessee are quite similar. Of course, the Vols play slow. The Vols are better defensively than they are offensively. The Vols were very good on the offensive glass, less good on the defensive glass. The Vols defend the three-point line very well, and the Vols, don't quite shoot the 3 at the level that, say, Florida shoots the 3 or that Houston shoots the 3. The Gators make 36% of their threes. That's 70th in America. Tennessee only 33.8. But the point is, these were very similar teams. I think the margin of victory for Houston over Tennessee shocked some people. But, I think what the only real shocking thing to me was that Zakai Ziegler was undersized and really struggled against Houston's pressure. And then Chaz Lanier missed shots, right? And there was no other option. And so as good as Jordan Gainey was, 17 points of Tennessee's 50, Houston got a big lead, 34-12 at one point, and they just kind of suffocated Tennessee from there. I think Tennessee got within 9 at one point. It didn't matter. Point being, it was really interesting game because it was two teams that play very, very much like one another. High volume 3-point shooting teams. Tennessee took 43.4 of their shots this season from the 3-point line. Houston, they're going to take a lot of threes too, man. They take 34.7, so they will try to get into the paint a little bit, but they don't finish well around the rim. It's kind of the one weakness of their offense, and that's because they're not terribly tall, but they put pressure on you because their guards can all drive, and then if you overhelp on drives, it opens up the offensive glass to Jawan Roberts and to Malik Wilson when he's in, and Joseph Tugler, who gets 14.6% of misses when he's on the floor. Just an outstanding offensive rebounder. So they really have 3 offensive rebounders that they can play and will play. Malik Wilson plays a little less. They played 7 against Duke, but they certainly are confident playing 8 and may end up playing 8 tomorrow. We will see how that goes. So I think Florida's path to victory, create a couple turnovers, get some transition baskets when you can. When you can run, you got to run, and you have to take care of the ball when running. Somebody other than Walt going off, it has to be either Will Richard or Elijah Martin, I think, for Florida. And then rebound. If Florida wins the rebounding battle, I think Florida wins the national championship tomorrow night and brings home the 3rd national title in Florida basketball history. I hope you guys enjoy. Go Gators.
All right. What's going on, everybody?
Evening, Dave.
Good evening.
Go Gators.
Go Gators. How about them Gator boys? What a fun team to watch. That was kind of my message, yesterday. It was like everybody's, we're here in the chat and you're on Twitter and everybody's like, just so antsy, so nervous. And don't get me wrong, I had some of that in me as well. But it was like, I'm ready to see this team play again, man. They're just such a fun team to watch, and of course that comes with winning. You're winning, and it's a lot more fun to watch. But just given what we've seen, I mean, it is such a fun team to watch. They're easy to root for. Coach Todd Golden's easy to root for. The personalities on the team, they're easy to root for. And, I think when you get in that setting of the Final Four, it's do or die. I mean, it's been do or die for the last couple of weeks, but, it just gets ramped up. Every game that you win and build upon that to get to the Final Four, to get to a national championship. And, it's not only do I want to see this team win to win and hoist a trophy, I want to see this team win because I just enjoy watching them play.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. I'm sure. I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but I'm sure most Florida fans, their second sport is basketball since we have, since 2000 been good at it. I mean, one of the best programs, in the country, regardless of blue bloods or whatever, like people on Twitter like to talk. But, yeah, I mean, one could argue that we're just as successful in basketball as we have been in football.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of made up my mind for last night that, I wasn't going to try not to get nervous and, making the Final Four is a huge accomplishment, by itself, just getting this far. So, of course, I live in Alabama, I especially wanted to beat Auburn, so it was that much sweeter.
For sure.
But yeah, like you said, it's fun. This has been a real fun team, fun season.
Really has been. Really has been. Thanks for hopping in, guys. Certainly a lot to discuss about this team and kind of just on the heels of what we just talked about, how much we are enjoying this run that this team is on. So a lot to cheer for about this team as they go against Houston in the national championship. Florida beats Auburn. Houston comes and storms back and beats Duke and sets up the national championship in that fashion. So now we can certainly look back at the game versus Auburn. I know a lot of people are ready to look ahead to Houston. So, we can look at some stuff, go through their schedule a bit. They did play some SEC teams throughout this past season. Certainly beat what people thought was the best team going into the Final Four. The last couple of weeks in the tournament in Duke, coulda, shoulda, woulda in that game. Many people after Florida had won, and the way that game was playing out, it looked like a Florida-Duke national championship matchup on Monday night. But Houston storms back, and now we'll go against Florida. So some storylines for that game, of course. Florida elite offense against a Houston elite defense, and certainly contrasting style there. Both teams, I think, top 10 in both sides or both ends of the court, but one side being much higher than the other. So certainly a good contrast of styles here, and some offense versus defense. So that's kind of where you'll start in that matchup. But certainly, once again, we keep saying this, and you would think it probably has to hold some weight in the final game, the national championship. We're sitting here saying Florida hasn't played their best, and they're going to need to play their best. And we've been saying that the last couple of weeks. You would think that is the case in the national championship game, but I thought that might be the case versus Auburn as well. I don't think Florida played their best, and they still came away with a victory. So we can sit there and say Florida has to play their best, but maybe not. Maybe Florida's. That's going to happen too. With the Florida hasn't played their best, the competition has ramped up. Maybe the reason Florida's not playing their best is because of the competition ramping up. I think a lot of teams probably could say that. I think Houston was saying that against Duke a good bit. We were not playing our best game. They stormed back and win anyway. I think Duke maybe was the only team that probably could say that going into the Final Four. Hasn't played their best game yet, or actually have maybe been playing their best games. I think the other three teams probably weren't saying that. Or they were saying they hadn't played their best game in the Final Four. And now you're in the championship, and can Florida play like they have and come out on the winning side of things, or are they going to have to play their best game of the season? Certainly got to play better, got to play safer. Houston can turn you over. Houston likes to turn you over. Florida's got to take better care of the ball than what we have seen so far in this tournament. So defense and Florida doing their thing of not giving Houston extra possessions. Certainly, I think where I'd start in that matchup. But we can go back to the matchup versus Auburn to win over Auburn, but also take a look at that Monday night matchup.
Taking along what you said, Dave. Houston is number 1 in rated defense, number 9 in offense. Florida's number 2 in offense, and we're number 2 in offense, number 9 in defense. They're number 10 in offense and number 1 in defense.
There you go.
So it's like almost mirror images.
Right. There we go. That's Ken Palm? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Ken Palm. There you go. I just pulled that up. Bull Gator. Yeah. So overall, Florida is 3rd. Houston is 2. Duke still remains number 1. Auburn is number 4. With that, both Florida and Houston 35-4 going into this matchup. As Bull Gator mentioned, Houston with the 10th rated offense and the number 1 rated defense. Florida the number 2 offense, the number 9 defense. When you take a look at it. So that's what as we say, contrasting styles here, but both in the top 10 on both ends of the court. So certainly can set up for an epic matchup here, which, hey, the Final Four lived up to the hype. We got all the number 1 seeds, and I know, and the ratings bared it out. I made sure to share that on Twitter. I think it's the highest ratings for the Final Four since 2017. And there was a lot of talk this week. Oh, it's boring. There's no Cinderellas. And we all know people like watching the names. Florida's a name in basketball. Hadn't been for a little bit, but we know they are. Of course, Duke in there helping as well, Auburn and Houston, but certainly getting those ratings. People don't need the Cinderellas to have interest here, but going to end up being two of the best teams here. I think with the way, no matter how the championship would have ended up, I think you would have made the case for whoever won these games as Final Four that lived up to expectations. Which teams won these games in the Final Four absolutely deserve to be in the championship game. All your number one seeds, and it did live up to the billing. We got some great basketball on Saturday night.
Dave, another thing I heard funny, that they were commenting that almost every team that Houston has played this year, they kept them 10 points below their scoring average.
Ooh.
Considering our scoring average is just over 85 and Houston's scoring average is 74, we should win.
I like that. You're looking at a 75-74 win, to your point there, Bull Gator.
I mean, that's why, hey, it's a 1.5 point spread. So, hey, maybe Vegas knows something.
There you go.
And it was just one of those pointless statistics that somebody threw out.
I like it, though. If we go through, I went to team rankings. I use team rankings a lot for football. And they got some good basketball stats, too. Houston, kind of going to your point, Bull Gator, in every team stat defensively, whether it be scoring defense, shooting defense, Houston is number one in the country. Another that I found, and I didn't expect to find this. I didn't see this. I didn't know this about Houston. Now, granted, I certainly didn't follow the SEC this year. They are also number one in team extra scoring chances per game with 8. So, rebounding certainly going to be a big here. Florida was a little bit lower in this than I thought. Florida 51st in the country, 3.4 team extra scoring chances per game. Houston number one in the country there. St. John's was number 2, by the way, with 7.8. Texas A&M was 3. St. Mary's 4, UCLA 5. So it lets you know, I mean, Houston's the only team in that top of the category. It's, of course, still playing. St. John's was number 2. Certainly a reason they went and were so highly thought of coming into the tournament. But that was I wasn't sure. I just started looking at other statistics there. Wasn't expecting to find Houston near the top, but did.
That's wild considering extra shots on basket, and still they only scored 73.9 points average.
That is a good point. Yeah.
Limit turnovers and rebound.
Yeah.
Make free throws. We win this game. Yeah, make free throws. Exactly.
Well, I like the fact that the only one's been able to stop Walter Clayton is Todd Golden by sitting him on the bench.
Well, he's got to have a breath. He's got to have a breather here or there.
I'm sure teams with game plan.
Walter Clayton has made in this tournament.
Oh, that's a good point, Bull Gator.
I mean, they basically, who is it? Williams from ESPN said, I'd take him number 2.
I saw that. Jay Will, of course, I was looking at that too. Somebody shared it on the social media this morning, and I was, whoa, okay. I didn't expect to hear that. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not really going to disagree with you here. I think he has certainly played a great tournament and opened some eyes. And, granted, I think he even said it in that same set. Look, I'm not calling him Steph Curry, but Steph Curry, he does Steph Curry things. Certainly not at the consistency of Steph Curry would, but hey, if you're 3/4 of a Steph Curry, you're going to be a darn good NBA player for a long time. Maybe Walter Clayton can do something like that. But, man, what a special performance by him on the biggest stage as well. And we've seen it and throughout this tournament where him coming up in clutch moments, not necessarily playing an entire game like he did in those clutch moments, but he put together an entire game for all the world to see right there against Auburn. It was apparent from the get-go that he was going to be that guy. What was the first basket of the game was a 3 by him. Certainly plays near the basket, hitting those 3-pointers as well. Certainly, I wouldn't even say. I hate to say it because I don't want to down the rest of the team. I could say, maybe put the team on the shoulders a bit. I won't go that far. But Florida, and Walter Clayton, certainly played a huge role. And, of course, a Elijah Martin there as well. I hope Will Richard gets going in this final. I think Florida needs their guards. Walter Clayton's going to need some help from some other guards there. I think when you go against Houston and probably their game plan against him, how much will they double him, and maybe Florida can find some advantages elsewhere. But Houston, a really good defensive team, and only a day to prepare now. But Kelvin Sampson's got certainly a lot of experience, and it's a system that it's more of a system defense, so they don't really have to. I don't think tape and stuff is going to reveal something what they should be doing against Florida. They're not going to change what they do. What they do is what got them here, and what they do is play really, really good defense and frustrate some offenses. So I think it's going to be an interesting chess match if Walter Clayton can put together another performance like we've seen throughout this whole tournament, and Houston and what they're known for of playing this hard-nosed, tough defense.
Another point, Dave. I basically about on what you just said with regard to one-day preparation. Florida has played what I think we're on 5 games now in the tournament. We did well our first game, well our third game, and I think we handled Auburn, but for the adversity on the court. But we struggled in 2 games, and that was UConn and Texas Tech. Both of those games came as second games on the weekend. In other words, UF only had a day to prepare.
Yeah.
So that's one of my bigger concerns for tomorrow, is we're playing a real good team with, once again, only a day to prepare.
Glad you brought that up. I was on VCN Sports Network earlier today, and they brought that up as well. So good looking out there. That certainly hadn't even crossed my mind until they brought it up, and I'm so glad you brought it up as well. Florida's struggled so far in the tournament. Certainly, better second half performances. I think that's probably what we're going to look for then, right? And you bringing that up, and Florida, maybe Florida getting off to a better start than those 2 games, and having to fight. And I mean, they're going to have to fight in this game. Don't get me wrong, but fight. You don't want to fight too far behind. Don't want to get too frustrated in this one. But that is a great angle to what we have seen the last couple of weeks.
What about Houston? How do they fare in their 2 games with just one-day prep?
That's a good question.
I mean, I know they won them, but
yeah.
How do I don't
All
know
right,
how they
so if we go back,
I know they slaughtered Tennessee.
So they did. That's right. So it was okay. It's they had a 78-40 win in their opening round game against SIU. So okay, whatever. But then they played Gonzaga, won 81-76, and then 62-60 against Purdue in the Sweet 16, and then slaughtered Tennessee 69-50. And then the 70-67 win over Duke. So their 2 close games were back to back. Their round of 32 game against Gonzaga, 81-76, and then their Sweet 16 game, 62-60 over Purdue. Before
Main thing, look at those
buzzer beater against Purdue.
Look at those final scores in all those games.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. If we play our game, we just score too much in a lot of ways. I mean, that's the key to the game there.
Yeah, 81 versus Gonzaga, so okay, that's pretty good. But then you're right, 62 versus Purdue, 69 in a blowout against Tennessee. The Tennessee game's interesting, of course, because Tennessee couldn't hit the broadside of a barn in that game. But we know Houston's a good defensive team, so I'm sure they played a large role in that. But we saw Tennessee go to Gainesville and pretty much kind of the same performance earlier in the season. So Tennessee has that in them. We've seen that firsthand ourselves this year. So certainly, but I don't want to poo-poo on what Houston can do, because I'm sure they played a large role in that against that Tennessee team. And also just credit to them, going back one more time. Everybody in the world thought that game was over with Duke, and they come storming back there. Duke and that. I mean, look, they had Mike White on the sideline last night with that scoring drought to end the game there for Duke, but. Credit Houston. Just keep fighting, man. That was everybody in the world thought that game was over.
We need an Alex Condon sighting here. We need him to show up He's done it on other ways and whatnot, but I think Alex Ovechkin probably scored more points than he has already. So
Yeah, I do hope that second half defensive performance is some kind of fire, some kind of spark to light something on offense there for Condon. Certainly a great adjustment. And I like what he said after the game about the adjustment at halftime. Walter Clayton got with the bigs and made sure that they knew the assignment. He joked saying Todd Golden, it wasn't really words of encouragement, it was a cuss out. So he was coming at us pretty hard at halftime. And hey, look, Florida was just getting beat down low. Auburn was a lot more physical. Broom sitting there doing his thing in the first half, and Florida just shutting him down in the second half. So certainly whatever message came from Walter Clayton, whatever message came from Todd Golden and the staff certainly got across. And I mean, halftime adjustments have certainly been A plus for this staff and for Todd Golden in this tournament so far. Not playing Florida, if Florida could put together two halves, this team would be. But look, I keep going back to that. It's so hard for me to say, Florida's winning. They're in the national championship game, and Florida's not played their best. And if we could put together two halves. But in a way, to me, at the same time, that's what the tournament is. You're playing good opponents, and the more you keep going, the tougher the opponents are going to get. So I want to give credit to some of the opponents too. I don't think it's all Florida just not playing well. You're going to play some other good teams, and so certainly I think that's going to happen again on Monday night as well against Houston. So, but we do know Florida can play better. And playing better, does that mean a double-digit win over Houston, or does playing better still get you hopefully a win either way? I don't care how you win, but is Florida going to have to play better? I think is a question I think is worth asking.
well, I have to say I rather play Houston than, well, I call him Mollywop, but his name's Mollywatch. I didn't want to see him, man.
Although he had a terrible night last night.
Mm-hmm.
It was terrible.
He did.
His lack of showing up was probably the difference in that game.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And talking to one of my Duke buddies here, that's a good question. And I'll go back to I got a real good friend who's diehard Duke basketball fan, and what he explained to me in the game last night. So he goes, Shire coached poorly down the stretch, bad rotations, just rolled the ball out on offense instead of calling plays. I hope he learns from it because he seems like a great coach for the most part. But our starting center there, who we're talking about, playing 21 minutes, being minus 20 while having 0 rebounds, while being at least 8 inches taller than anyone else on the court. This was going to hurt for a while. Then I kind of responded with, I said, yeah, I think so too. I said, not sure that's due to what everyone was saying about not being tested, but I never saw a scoring drought like that happen unless you're coached by Mike White. And that is a group chat, by the way, with some Bulldog fans. So I had to make sure that I put that out there. He responded with, I don't think the not being tested thing matters. I just think Shire needs to adjust his approach in close situations. Asking an 18-year-old to win you close games by beating a 25-year-old one-on-one seems like a bad philosophy. That's just how all 4 of our losses ended. Just run a damn set. So that was the observation from and this guy played high school basketball, loves basketball, coaches a little bit of basketball right now. Nothing major there, but just let you know, it's not coming from I say known place, but. David Bunkley's his name. He actually went to the Florida-Miami game with me back in 2019 when we opened the season up in Orlando. But that was his thoughts there of how Houston and Duke ended up.
Well, it's interesting. If you look, I posted on the Discord the basketball thing today, the heights of their starting 5.
Yeah, you did. Yep.
Tallest 2 guys, Tugler and Roberts, are 6'8". That's their tallest guys. So you'd think when we have Handlockton out there and Chinlu.
Yeah.
Chinlu, thank you. We would have a definite advantage. But on the same hand, Houston had an advantage with two guys who were 6'8" and couldn't rebound against a guy who's what is he? He's a good 7 feet tall. There at Malawa. So that'll be interesting to see. We should have a rebounding advantage, but I can't say for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that goes back to the stat that I put out there, the extra scoring chances per game. So I'll have to maybe dive into that more, maybe reach out to Neil and stuff too and see what they maybe put out there. So, because it's weird when you look at that, because we've all heard, and I'm going to the stat now, Florida's 4th in the country in offensive rebounds per game. So that's why I thought Florida would be higher in that whole second chance scoring thing. So I don't know. It was kind of weird to me how that broke out there. Houston is 25th in the country in offensive rebounds per game.
I'd say one thing that could help them in that is that they are a physical team. That game last night, when I'm watching that, I'm like, I want neither part of either of these teams because they were beating the hell out of each other. That was really a game where the officials let them play. And I don't know how Florida would do in that game. Although, when we beat Tennessee and we were up by 40, we were playing just that physical. When we went to Auburn, we were playing just that physical. So we have the ability to do it. I just haven't seen us play that way in a long time. I wonder if Houston is going to force us to do that, or I wonder if we still got it in our ability to do that.
What about the second half of last night versus Auburn? Bull, what did you think about that as far as physicality?
I thought we were much tighter, but I think a lot of that helped. That I think that Johnny Broome was exhausted.
Yeah.
I don't think he practiced all week. I don't think he worked out all week, and I think that showed. I mean, you could see
it.
I mean, halfway through the second half, he's holding the bottom of his shorts. He's tired, and he's just jogging up and down the court. He can't run anymore. But that, even though it's just one guy, we shut down their guards. I mean, who is it? Fawcett and Blackmon say, I don't want to see Elijah Martin on Pettiford because he'll run him around. Elijah Martin destroyed Pettiford.
He did.
I mean, it wasn't even close. So there was everybody that we put on them with a good guard except for Johnny Broome. When he got tired, the game was over.
No.
And by the way, Dave, you notice I haven't mentioned officials once yet. You're welcome.
I have noticed. I did notice.
We're awful.
He should have chose Florida.
Yeah, for real.
Well, last night in the second half, you had every right to mention the officials because there were some pretty egregious no calls.
Yeah, there certainly were. And heck, you even know going out there that I don't hop on that wagon too much, and I had to. I mean, I couldn't go by anymore. I was like, all right, maybe break character a little bit. The officiating is freaking terrible. So, it was. And here's the thing, it's not like the foul discrepancy was there. It should have just been even more. And I know, people will call me out on Twitter of opposing fan bases or something. I don't care. But it's just like, well, what do you mean that Auburn's only got one more foul than Florida, or Florida's only got one more foul than Auburn? I'm like, yeah, but y'all probably should have like 5 or 6 more. That's the point.
Easily.
Yeah.
Easily.
So, yeah.
I mean, when Mike Greenberg of ESPN tweets it that the officiating is bad, and PJ Carlesimo says it on the national radio broadcast, it's bad.
Yeah, and also
they called it out 3 times on TV
on the broadcast, and
three times.
Yeah, and I know we're all in tune with Neil, of course, of Florida Basketball Hour, and even he's got tweets about it as well. So it's not coming from anywhere, and it's not orange and blue glasses, which I'm sure we're going to look forward to even more in that instance. But man, it wasn't just the Gator fans putting it out there; a lot of people noticed it.
Egregious.
Yeah, going to the offensive rebounding percentage, that's probably where the second chance comes in. Houston is 8th in the country there at 36.3%. Florida is 4th in the country at 37.8% of team offensive rebounding percentage. So that's where Houston probably makes up their second chance scoring.
And remember, that statistic has been correlated all year long, including the majority of the year that we didn't have Handlockton back, and he helps.
Yeah. Yep.
I want to see a good decision by Golden not to play Clapshar unless he's hurt.
Well, he didn't last night, so.
Man. Yeah, he's a little guard. I think they would have ate him up out there.
Yeah, I think they probably know that too. Not really a good tournament. We saw him, certainly fall back down to earth a little bit in this tournament, and we didn't see him on the floor versus Auburn. So
Yeah, he kind of got worked the chances he got earlier.
Yeah.
In the tournament, like you said.
If we want to go, I mentioned Houston played some SEC teams this year. They did play Auburn earlier in the year. Auburn beat them 74-69. Broome had 20 points in that game. Pettiford for Auburn had 21 points that game. This was earlier in the season. If you look at it, Auburn had 39 bench points against Houston earlier this year. So maybe. I mean, that game was so long ago. So that's one of the first games of the season. So take it for what it's worth. I'm just letting you know. Points in the paint for Auburn in that game, 36. They had 10 points off of turnovers. They had 14 fast break points. 9 second chance points for Auburn in that game. So not a whole lot there. But as I mentioned, 39 bench points for the Tigers in that game. For Houston, they had 17 bench points, 10 fast break. 16 second chance points there for Houston, kind of going to the conversation earlier. 28 points in the paint there, and 16 points off of turnovers against Auburn. So a common opponent there. So second chance points in that game. Yeah, go ahead.
Dave, if I could say one thing, parroting what the Florida Basketball Hours, this is not from my own personal knowledge, this is what they said.
Okay.
Auburn earlier in the year ran a completely different offense, that flex offense that they got away from.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And they've shortened their bench up dramatically. So when you talk about all those bench points, there are a couple guys that played in that game that, they're seeing maybe 2 and 3 minutes a game now, that they saw much more minutes earlier in the year. So it's why it's hard that Auburn game versus Houston is hard to say, because that's a completely different Auburn team that we're seeing right now.
Good point. So then I went to, of course, I'm pulling up the other game. They played Alabama as well, and Alabama won that one, 85-80. So Houston got beat by Auburn and Alabama. Alabama in that game, 31 bench points. So, hey, maybe there's a trend for SEC teams right here. Mark Sears led the way with 24 points overall there, of course, but Aiden Holloway had 14. Mamadou Diabate had 10 there for Bama. They had 22 points in the paint. They had 10 points off turnovers, 3 fast break points for Bama. And, hey, that was a team that would run up and down. So maybe, a team that does like to run there in Alabama not being able to do so, or, maybe not needing to do so, but that's certainly a game they can play. Only 3 fast break points there against Houston. They had 15 second chance points, did Alabama in that game.
So will we give a little credit to Todd being, I guess he's sort of like under Pearl's coaching tree, out of his coaching tree. Maybe that had a little to do with 2 wins there against him. Maybe a little bit.
For sure, he's the Bruce Pearl tree.
2-0 against him this year, of course, and one when all the marbles going to the championship game.
And of course, the third game they played was against Tennessee. Which
Correct.
As they say, mollywopped them.
Yeah, Tennessee only 3 fast break points in that game. They had 18 bench points. Tennessee 14 points in the paint. Only 2 points off of turnovers there for Tennessee against Houston. For Houston in that game, since we know Florida played Tennessee in the SEC title game. Houston, 30 points in the paint in that game. They had 15 bench points, no fast break points. I mean, Houston's not a team that's going to, want to run. Can Florida, Florida, that's what the biggest difference was to me. Florida turned some defense into offense in the second half versus Auburn. Sped up a little bit as well. I think that certainly helped, Florida's style of play right there in the second half, helped Florida make that run, make Florida kind of just play much, much better than they did in the first half, and much better than Auburn, because Florida was able to kind of play more of their game that we haven't seen a whole lot this tournament. Y'all guys heard me ask Neil about it and Patrick Young about it too last week, because Florida's kind of been taken out of their game a little bit and still finding ways to win. is Houston going to give Florida a lot of opportunities for fast break points or at least to be able to speed the game up and keep Houston in transition?
I think we're going to have to create that on defense.
I think you're right, because their defense probably is not going to allow it.
And by the way, continuing on the point you were making about common opponents, they're 1-2 in common opponents, and I believe we're 6-1 because we played Tennessee 3 times.
That they split versus Texas Tech, by the way, because Houston is in the Big 12. So they split. Florida played Texas Tech last week, and so Houston split with Texas Tech.
True. So we're 7-1 versus common opponents.
There we go.
We're 2-2.
You know what I want to see continue to happen? I want these broadcasters to keep being against us and saying, only one's been on our side is Coach Greenberg. He's the only one been saying he thinks we're the best team. So I don't know if y'all noticed, man. It just sound like these guys when they broadcast, man, they're so excited for the opposite team,
I'll admit, I think I've seen a little split. I think Florida's been given kudos. Now, I do think, kind of maybe even going to your point, as the tournament has played out, some of those kudos have probably went away a bit. I think many people were considering Florida the best team coming into the tournament. Didn't necessarily maybe play out that way because of the close games against Utah, against UConn, and Texas Tech. But you're right. I think it did kind of fall by the wayside a little bit. I did see some more kind of tilting towards Auburn as the week went on because Florida had played just some closer games.
Right. So don't think they're not hearing all of this stuff against them. I think they're using it because nobody's really thinking we're gonna win it. So,
well, Florida's favored, but the ESPN matchup predictor I think had like 70% Houston, I think, which was crazy.
65 or something like that.
Yeah, which I didn't expect to see, given how this thing has played out so far.
I think that's the recency bias of watching them beat Duke.
Oh, good point. Good. That is a really good point. Yeah, 65.5%. Yeah, for Houston on the ESPN Analytic Matchup Predictor.
By the way, speaking of officials, going back to that, tomorrow night we have Ron Groover, Doug Sermons, and Terry Oglesby, arguably the 3 best officials in the country.
Oh, okay. I was about to ask you what are your thoughts on that, Bull Gator, because I do not follow the Zebras that well.
We've had Oglesby already this year, and I forget the game. I mean, you know me, I'm going to complain regardless. And there were issues that I had, but Groover, Sermons, and Oglesby, by reputation, are the 3 best.
Never change, Bull Gator. I'm serious on that.
I just hope they let him play tomorrow
like
night.
I see it, whether it's rational or not.
Good point, Ryan, about let them play.
Just let them play. They're both. I mean, both teams can be physical. Let them be physical. I mean, as long as it ain't body slams and getting elbows to the face, just let them play. Don't be the deciding factor of the game.
And I think looking at these two teams, because Florida's bigs are so good too, you hope you get consistency through different, referee staffs, but that's too much to ask for. You're not going to, but I think these two teams and Florida, I think Florida can be physical, and Houston is physical. So yeah, I mean, I certainly I would want to see it go in that vein more than I would see if I'm looking at it being called the same for both teams. Let both teams be more aggressive. Don't be so ticky tacky with the calls.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can. With Hanlongen in there or Chinulu in there, we're a lot more physical team. I mean, Martin's already pretty physical just at guard. I mean, on defense, he's phenomenal. But yeah, I mean, I think we can match them. I mean,
Well, now here's the thing. Now, maybe I'm talking myself out of it. If it is ticky-tacky, maybe we are a deeper team. It helps us.
Well, that definitely will help.
Look at Will Richard last night. Keep getting called for reaching in.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, you're going to call that every time? Please call it both ways. And they did.
Right, you're right.
We got called on that a lot more than they did. So if we can do that more, because I think we're a better stealing team than they are, but they're a better bumping team. I mean, they were beating the heck out of Duke last night.
That is a good point. I do like, and I think we have shown that in the tournament when the fast break is there. I do like it's kind of off the, it's off the dribble with those steals. We've seen Clayton, we've seen Richard, we've seen Martin. I mean, I do like that part of it. And I think that's where the transition for Florida has come from.
Yeah.
Martin's steal and dunk will now be a legendary picture in Gator lore forever.
I mean, it is going to be. It will be even more if we win. So, that was just. It was fun last night too. And I know there's been a lot more, even on Gators Breakdown. And I explained myself of, look, we've talked basketball in here, and I'm in the chat. I can have you guys defend me a bit. I don't want people coming out there and say, oh, you're just now talking basketball. I'm talking basketball publicly and on Gators Breakdown. I've had the moniker for a while. It's all football all the time, but we got a special team here. I want to give them their kudos when I can. And I had a lot of people ask, they want to know my thoughts. So, okay, I'll put them out there. They're not going to be the most informed thoughts. I absolutely will admit that about basketball and all that. But this team has just been fun. And I think that I've had two of my funnest moments in Gator sports just the last couple of weeks. I don't get to watch as much basketball and sports with my dad and me here in Jacksonville, and me covering the Gators a whole lot during football season, so I don't get to watch as many events with my dad as I want. Well, he was in town last week. I got to watch the Texas Tech game with him and enjoyed the heck out of it. My family, we sat down in the living room, my daughter and my wife, and we sat and watched that basketball game last night and had a ton of fun doing it. And then you're being able to see the exciting plays of Elijah Martin having those steals and those dunks and the run Florida goes on in that second half. I mean, it kind of goes back to the point where I was starting with this. This team is just so fun. And I've enjoyed being able to put my thoughts out there and talk about this team, because this is a special team, and I hope they go out hoisting that trophy.
So that means next year, Dave, you're not going to have live chats and be posting YouTube videos while games are playing?
It's difficult when spring practice starts because my schedule gets thrown everywhere. But I will, Bull Gator, I will say, I will try my best. I didn't do it much this year. You're right. There was a couple times I will admit, but sometimes it's about Will's schedule and when Will can come on, and that's usually when it happens is when I have a guest and I'm working around their schedule as well. But I will try to refrain as much as possible from going head to head with the basketball team here on Gators Breakdown.
I appreciate that.
Believe me, I don't like it either. But what you don't know is I got a tablet right there off to the side, so I'm peeking. I'm peeking, especially when Will's talking.
Oh, you haven't told Will yet that he's fired and you're bringing Neil on? It's now going to be a basketball show.
I did enjoy that conversation there.
It was great, and honestly, I wish those guys would hop into the Discord on occasion. Both of them, Eric and Neil, are fantastic.
Yeah, I put the invites out there, and I'm trying to get something together with Neil for this. He's busy. He's in San Antonio. I want to let him enjoy what he's doing. I sent him a few questions. He's going to try. I'm going to put this chat's going to be out there for everybody, but Gators Breakdown Plus, the chat's going to take place on here. I will put the episode out for everybody out there. But I did send a few questions to Neil. He's going to voice record those, so I'm going to attach that to this chat if he sends it to me in time. But what I told Neil to discuss, and sorry guys, if I put the full episode out, you've already heard what Neil has to discuss. But while we're having the conversation, so you guys who are in the chat right now know, I'm just gonna I asked Neil to pop in and say best adjustment Florida made on both ends versus Auburn. I want to get his thoughts there. The matchup he's looking forward to the most versus Houston. A path to victory versus Houston, and which team has Florida faced resembles Houston the most. So I think Tennessee is that team, probably.
I would agree.
I was going to say Tennessee, yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, they're defense minded and like to slow the game down. So that'd be the best team we could compare them to, I think, too.
yeah. So hopefully, we're recording this at 7:45 right now on Sunday evening. We'll get Neil to do that, and well, you probably already know if it's attached to this episode or not. So.
Well, hopefully it's that game. We have that game we did against Tennessee where we were up by 40 at one point.
Yeah, the first one.
I'll take that. I'll take a cold night shooting from Houston.
I'll take the first one or the third one, just not the second one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to search through your stuff, Dave, and I know you talking basketball here, but I mean I can't get it out of my mind. I'm concerned about DJ's shoulder, man.
I hear you. Look, I do some football. I mean, look, like I said, we're primarily a football podcast. Look, I'm not. Yeah, this is fine. I think we're pretty much wrapping up basketball right there anyway. But we can certainly come back around to it before we sign off here about 8:00. But I get it, man. I really do. You have a right to be concerned. I mean, he's not throwing during spring practice. It's certainly alarming. I will be honest with you. I've asked around as much as I could. Does it seem to be major concern inside the building about it? Everything will be a-okay. I'm going to be honest up front about it. That's what I'm hearing. Now, of course, that could be everybody zipping their mouths and being told what they need to be told and putting out there. But that's all I got for you. And a lot of that info comes from other info I've been able to share, and it's been trustworthy and all that. It's certainly a sensitive situation with your star quarterback in the shoulder. I completely get it. If the concern's out there, because there just hasn't been any straight answers out there. But I can share what I've been hearing. So I mean, I'm going to trust what I'm hearing, and I think everything will be a-okay. We've discussed, certainly I'd love for him to be getting those reps with those receivers and that offensive line and the skill players on offense, of course. But when it all comes down to it, I'm not going to be blaming a loss to, at LSU, a loss somewhere in the season because DJ Lagway didn't play in the spring.
So other outlets probably just plumb don't know nothing then, because I even heard, I think I had skimmed across somebody talking about, they were asking the question, does he need surgery? And I'm like, oh no.
And look, if he does, I've put this out there on the Discord. I don't think it's going to affect the 2025 season. If he does, I'm just saying, if he does, I can see it being the case right after the season's over with, and hopefully that's after Florida's, sitting there playing in the college football playoff and in the national championship game, and then we all feel better about it anyway. But I think, I don't think it's going to affect the season. If it's something that needs to get cleaned up, something that needs to get repaired, so he can, it's not a nuisance anymore. I would just bank on it being after the season and not really necessarily playing into the 2025 schedule. But
why didn't he do it after this season then? If it is that case. He's already not throwing in the spring. Wouldn't it make more sense to get it done after the end of the season? Do your recovery now? I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I'm just.
Yeah, I know. There's speculation. I think there's some speculation maybe out there too that they just didn't. They wanted to avoid surgery. So,
Sounds like it's not that serious. He just, number one, Billy's always going to protect his guys, so he's gonna be like a dad and protect them from getting all the personal info and stuff out. And then DJ also and his family they're probably playing like the long game with this. Like they're thinking NFL, they're thinking multi-year, you know what I'm saying? So they were probably trying to not go with surgery and then realized, I guess it's a little worse, but it's not bad enough to where it's going to really hinder him. Like, he's probably still like 95% probably.
And and that's the thing. Are we getting everything? I mean, obviously we're not getting everything because it's been, as you just kind of mentioned there, the style of it, and maybe the family doesn't want everything out there. Maybe Napier doesn't want everything out there. And that's certainly their prerogative. But with that, of course, is going to lend itself to a lot of speculation.
Yeah, that's a lot of the problem right now, Dave.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just tuning in, and you're on my favorite subject right now. The whole situation to me is very shady. I understand maybe they don't want to have this surgery now, but I also start to wonder, like, if we're putting this off another year, he's having this surgery before his money year, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I just wonder if the whole thing isn't being handled as well as it could be. Maybe there there's just not enough information.
There you go.
Saying.
Yeah, there you go.
So, but it is concerning that your star quarterback, and like basically the whole program relies on him, is not going through these reps. You and I were just the whole silver lining with Mertz going down last year was a lot of reps. For him going at 25, and now it's like, well, we're not going to be able to take full advantage of the whole cycle going into the season, especially with your two top receivers leaving. There's no, we don't have what we need with the chemistry with the receivers and all those extra reps that come through fully participating in spring practice. Like, I don't hear anybody sounding the alarm on those things. Yeah, all I hear is everybody minimalizing how much effect these reps actually have for DJ going into 25.
I think it's just because it's an unknown. I mean, we'd all rather have it, like I said, taking those reps. I don't think we'll know the effect until the season. I'm just not going to hang my hat on, Florida's going to sit there and lose games because he's not taking spring reps. I think kind of going to your point, he did get some last year. He got very, very important reps last year on the road, at home, in big game scenarios that I think is going to pay off for this 2025 season. So, is that, can that somewhat, if he played very sparingly last year, like we all thought going into last year, and this would have been his first full spring, does that equal out? And he kind of, plays a second great year anyway. That's a way I think we can view it. So, but that's just, I guess, preference and how you want to view it and the importance of things. But I certainly think he can take a lot from last year to kind of help replace missing this spring.
I think the one thing that I've learned over Billy the last few years, he does not care about outside perception.
He does not.
He literally, the only thing he cares about is what those guys inside those locker room think. So the whole Gator Nation could be up in arms about this, and he just does not care. He's not going to give us any more info. He's going to stick to his guns and what he's always done these past few years.
I do agree with you there. That's just kind of, heck, that's college football now and college sports now. It is not what it used to be. I remember when I first started working at the TV station, and they just, that I started in 2006, and of course everybody remembers Urban kind of shut down things. It was better probably what it is now for access, for practices and stuff like that. But it was still a stark contrast to what it used to be in the 90s under Spurrier and Bowden, and the Channel 4 would go to Gainesville every week and have one-on-ones with Spurrier and talk to Spurrier and be at practice, and kind of the same thing with Bowden in there. There was just, it's not the same as it used to be, but that's every program. It's not just a Florida thing. But yeah, the access isn't there now, and the internet's the main culprit for that. It's put many more eyes and mouths out there, and certainly I think that's an effect. The info travels a lot faster now, so that's the biggest thing. But I would be interested to cover sports in that era.
well, this time around, as opposed to last year, it was flipped. We had Graham Mertz projected to be the guy, and Lager was coming in and probably was going to be redshirted or whatever. But now Lagway is the guy, okay, and we don't know the rest of the room too well. Is there? I don't think there's anybody else we kind of can highlight in case it, things
there's not.
actually do go south.
There's not. So.
Right. So, yeah. So that's what makes this such a delicate thing here, and we hoping it is not nothing. I hope it's just something that they hope heals on its own.
For sure. All right, that will. Let's end this thing with everybody. What's the final thoughts on Final Four National Championship Monday night? What you looking forward to? What's your plans for the game?
I just want to say before I go, I'm calling it Big Will Richard game coming up.
There we go.
Big Will Richard game.
Need that.
So too.
Need that. Hasn't been the best tournament there for, but hey, kind of like Condon in a way, not necessarily, may not be putting it together on offense, but like we saw in that second half versus Auburn, a really good defense by Will Richard as well, as Bull Gator kind of said, when he was allowed to, by the way, but certainly made his impact felt in other ways. But yeah.
Elijah Martin is the man, and let's keep Hawk out there instead of Condon.
No, we're going to need confidence and physicality.
Yeah.
So we need someone put on the Discord that someone needs to kick him in the nuts before the game. I think a slap across the face would work, but someone's got to wake him up to go out there angry.
Hey, like I said, it kind of goes back to, like I said, he was talking after the game and was like, yeah, coach kind of cussed us out a little bit at halftime. So if that's what they need, go right ahead.
I'm glad y'all mentioned Condon because we're going to need him out there. I'm concerned about that forward that gave Duke the business. I think his name's Jefferson or something, or Johnson or something, for Houston. He is quick down low, and he's really he could be a problem if we don't have somebody good enough that can guard him.
If it's quick, we're probably going to need Richard or Amart on him because Condon's a lot of things, but quick's not one of them.
Or Thomas Howe. That boy bad.
Tommy would be good. Tommy's quick.
And what we're getting here, a lot of people were talking, are we getting, when you're kind of looking at matchups, you're getting experienced teams here. All right, that's the, people were talking about the experience of Houston versus Duke, and, Florida and Auburn are kind of both experienced there. But you're getting, I don't think, Elijah Martin playing in the Final Four, of course, and I think that showed up against Auburn. So I think when you look at the matchup there, you're getting I don't think the moment will be too big for any of the players out there.
And one of their guys is a national champion winner. I guess he played for Baylor, maybe, or
yes,
he's like a 5th or 6th year player. Or something.
Who is that? I don't remember who that was, but I heard him talking about it last night as well.
I think he played at Purdue. I think it was a player from Purdue.
No, I remember the Baylor storyline. I thought, yeah.
I think he might have was on that Baylor team or something. He's like a 6-year guy or something. He's old, but
yeah, that's what I was looking for. It was definitely gonna be one of the more experienced players.
Yeah.
All right, there we go. I gotta find that because now you got me wondering again because I can't remember his name either. Oh, well, that's going to be hard to find. Admittedly, not too in tune with Houston except for general thoughts and how they want to play. And A lot of that coming from watching a ton of Final Four coverage over the last week or so. Man, that is something else too. I love the broadcast. I mean, they make it feel like a special event. They make it feel like a big game, and of course all the lead up too. But the player intros and the videos. I mean, they do CBS does a great job of hyping up the Final Four.
Yeah, I've also noticed like they do a good job of actually piping in the crowd noise, so you can hear how big it is. You can hear how big these student sections are just all in. And I was very impressed with the amount of students that were able to go.
Yep.
I mean, did you notice that, Dave?
Oh yeah.
There seemed to be like they really showed up. I mean, geez, what
Florida got a good show. That was something else I noticed. Can kind of go into your point there. I was watching the whole pregame coverage on CBS Sports Network, and the pregame coverage on CBS Sport or CBS, and I mean, man, they were just I'm proud of Gator Nation, man. They sent a ton of fans to San Antonio.
So what are all the ties of whatnot? I mean, because I'm kind of confused. You got the inside the NBA guys covering, and you got some. Seems like some ESPN guys are in there too. I'm kind of all confused. But.
Yeah, part of it's just if you're part of the Turner Network, CBS and Turner have the deal, so that's why the NBA guys come over.
Oh, okay, yeah, gotcha.
Which you can kind of tell. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Barkley, and I love when they're talking about the game itself, but I think Barkley was mentioning Walter Clayton's on his third school, and I was like, huh? What?
No.
He's done that so much over the years.
Yeah.
Like, he has those snafus on air.
Like I said, I'm okay with it.
When he does the tournament.
Yeah.
Like, I remember way back when, and he was making the same snafus on air, and you're like, what are you talking about, bro?
But when they talk about the game, and like it's and strategy of the game and all that, I enjoy those guys on there. They finally get to watch basketball with some effort. It's probably new to them when they come over. They got to get back in tune with it. They don't see that.
So now, what does this mean for us if we win this national title? Well, for one thing, we're gonna have to show the man the money, okay, the coach.
Yep. And no problem doing that. Florida Victorious is but
assistant coaches.
Yeah, pay the assistant coaches. Losing a couple of those guys to head jobs after the season. So there you go. That's something else you got to do. But yeah, certainly pay Todd Golden there. And I think what we're doing right there in NIL space. So if you see the $250,000 match that Florida has to be already halfway there. That is put together by some donors who are doing the $250,000 match and trying to get it before tip-off, and they do that. That's going straight to the basketball program there. So I mean, when you talk about, I mean, even without a win tomorrow, a win over Houston, I mean, whatever we're talking about needs to be done needs to be done anyway. So
we're 11th in the SEC in the pay to our assistant coaches, and that's embarrassing.
I saw that. Bull. That's crazy.
Well, there's some ammo for him now.
That'll obviously go up.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. No, well, you can't avoid it. But
I saw a couple hours ago. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. What I was going to ask is, what does this team actually look like next year? I know obviously Clayton is gone, and
a lot taller.
All of our starting guards.
Yeah. The 3 guards.
Like 7'9" tall, but taller. Yeah.
And isn't the transfer portal currently open right now? Like it's time to be getting. Yeah. So I mean, let's enjoy this season. Let's enjoy tomorrow night.
And Golden's a master of it too, of that portal, by the way.
he has done a
Portal
great
guy
job there.
Tom.
Yeah, what I was going to say is that what you were talking about, that $250,000 match. A couple hours ago, you may have seen it on Twitter too, or reposted it, but it was already over 100,000.
Yeah, it was
So,
110,000
well,
when Nick put the first tweet for the update out of it. Yeah, so as we sit here, that will be the last thing I look at, and then we can go about our merry way for tonight. So, does Nick have an update? So let's see. I don't see one yet. Okay. But either way, it was like halfway there. So.
All right.
Good stuff to hear.
Well,
yeah.
go Gators.
Go Gators.
Go Gators.